the host of this session. So we're going to be hearing from our AI pioneers, FINRA and Alnylam, about how they're infusing AI into their business through use case prioritization and organizational alignment. So there's a few takeaways that I want you to come away with this session. I want you to think about the best practices and how they're using Dataiku as a springboard to help accelerate their AI acceleration journey. We are going to open this session up to Q&A at the end, so think about your questions throughout. So this panel is going to be divided into two parts. So we're going to first hear from Geetha from FINRA, and then we're going to welcome to the stage Charlotte from Alnylam, and then that's when we'll open it up to Q&A. So first, I'd like to welcome to the stage Geetha from FINRA. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Geetha, let's start off by having you introduce FINRA, your role, and tell us a little bit about the composition of the team that uses Dataiku.
Yeah, as Erin mentioned, my name is Geetha Ramachandran, Senior Director in FINRA Technology, leading application engineering and data science platforms. We've been using Dataiku for more than 3 years now, and Dataiku has become a cornerstone in our analytics strategy, where our users are able to build, deploy, and scale analytical applications across the organization. I'd like to give a quick intro about FINRA. FINRA stands for Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. If you are from fintech, you probably know about us. We oversee the US brokerage industry and stock markets. Our mission is to protect the investors and promote market integrity. Now let's look at FINRA in numbers. With the next slide, FINRA is named as the best place to work in mid-sized IT companies for the 10th time, and we are very proud about that. As part of our regulatory functions, we oversee 620,000 broker-dealers working at 3,200 securities firms. And we also surveil almost all of equities and options market transactions. We collect, ingest, process, and analyze this volume of data to identify patterns of insider trading, fraud, and market manipulation in the markets. So we can go up to processing 662 billion market events per day. That's the scale and volume of data that we operate with and our business users operate with on a given average day. So 3 years ago, we embarked on an enterprise initiative called Advanced Analytics Initiative to meet the scale of our data needs, given this volume, and democratize access to tooling for practicing advanced analytics so that our technical and non-technical users can build analytical solutions in a collaborative manner for their business needs.
Thanks for the background there.
And I think you asked about my team. So I manage a platform engineering team with platform engineers and developers focusing on managing the platform, building integrations with FINRA systems, and also responsible for Dataiku Center of Excellence, managing the enablement function, serving all business units in the organization.
I think that's a good segue into some of the use cases that your team's working on. So tell us a little bit about how you're prioritizing those use cases and how they've evolved and scaled over time.
Yeah, our use cases are diverse, ranging from analyzing market events to predictive analytics. One of the major use cases from a platform standpoint for us is enabling self-service analytics so that we are able to provide the technical and non-technical users so that they can independently query and visualize market data to react to market trends more quickly and effectively. Now, we reach out to Excel users. Some of the user personas in our platform are Excel users, SQL users, data analysts, data scientists, business users, and even executives looking at the models and the dashboards and the outputs as part of their decision process. Now, in terms of prioritization, that has definitely evolved over a period of time. When we started with a set of experimentation, a lot of R&D projects, evaluating ideas and initiatives. But now, our teams have a more structured approach, aligning the use cases to business objectives and goals, and making sure that they have demonstrable value and business benefits to prove potential ROI, and also consider factors such as data maturity, data availability, and compliance requirements. So that has been our prioritization approach so far, and I think we have enabled a great group of users in terms of scaling, where scaling has been a critical focus given the volume and scale of the data we have got. This slide is a bit outdated, but we are now serving close to 1,000 users in the platform, and more than 50 terabytes of data analyzed in the platform, comprising of more than 9.5 million data objects that are analyzed with petabytes of source data. On an average, the platform has more than 1,000 virtual machines running in the platform, running all the models and the jobs and the workloads that the users have on the platform. So with all the scaling in mind, cost optimization measure is a constant focus for us, so that we introduce new measures in the infrastructure layer so that we can bring cost savings both at the platform level and also the workload level for our customers.
It's an impressive amount of users. So let's transition into enabling those users. So how are you enabling your internal customers at FINRA? And talk about that enablement, but also some of the challenges maybe associated with enabling the vast amount of people.
So enabling our internal customers has been a journey. It's been an experience and a journey and lots of lessons learned. When we started with Dataiku, we started with a set of foundational trainings with basics on data analytics concepts and tooling, and training on Dataiku platform itself. And then we realized that that is not enough to meet the demands and the growth at which we were growing in terms of our adoption. So today we have a comprehensive enablement strategy focused on advanced workshops, tailored trainings, and dedicated support for guidance and bootstrapping teams with solution design and architecture. So these are the three key pillars that we have in our enablement strategy for Dataiku Center of Excellence. And in addition to that, we have also built and established a community of practice. Given all the 1,000 users we have from different business units across different departments, bringing them all together into a central community to foster that continuous learning and a sense of belonging for each other, to exchange thoughts, share ideas, and talk about their products, their projects, show and tell, and showcase their experiences in a monthly forum. And tips and tricks they have learned along the way, and share best practices. And we also host platform spotlights where we have demo sessions on the platforms that we have, new tooling technologies, and even discuss emerging topics and new techniques. So you asked about the challenge. I'm going to answer that from a platform standpoint. One of the key challenges that we face initially was, I talked about self-service analytics. Building self-service analytics was one of our use cases, serving the large scale of customers we have got. So balancing that self-service analytics with data access and governance was a challenge for us. Because as we try to give access to tools and analytics services to the users, we have to equally also ensure that we are able to balance that with the governance needs and the data access needs. So to partially address that, what we did was built native integration in the Dataiku platform and all of the other data science platforms with FINRA's Universal Data Access Framework, so that we are ensuring users have the access they need without having to worry about any compliance requirements that they have to deal with. So this allowed our users to innovate more freely, realizing that there are guardrails in place, and they don't have to figure out the data access needs for their analytical solutions.
So let's then transition to, you have a lot of internal stakeholders, right? So tell us a little bit how you're aligning and meeting the expectations of those stakeholders, and also demonstrating at the same time the value for your work.
Right. So collaboration is at the heart of everything we do. My collaborators include analytical leaders from different business units, data scientists or champion users, and engineering teams. And I also work very closely with the security and compliance teams to ensure that our data initiatives meets the compliance standards. So this multidisciplinary collaboration has allowed us to sort of approach our problems from a diverse perspectives and come up with more well-rounded collaborative solution. In terms of managing stakeholder expectations, we employ agile methodologies with regular reviews and demo sessions, right? We conduct weekly reviews with the cross-functional team, with the user groups and the champion users, and monthly or quarterly product review sessions with our senior leadership teams, so that we ensure that the stakeholders across all levels are continuously engaged in the progress we are making, and we are incorporating their feedback early on in our product life cycle. Now, we talked about value demonstration, right? Because it is very important to articulate and demonstrate the value that these analytics investments are producing, right? So we document and represent the benefits, the business benefits, and the business impact that these analytics products have generated on a monthly fashion, along with an objective measure of platform adoption and growth. So one of the key strategies in our value articulation is storytelling through data. We don't just present numbers, we craft narratives that connects business outcomes to our analytics products. That way, the stakeholders are able to understand tangible benefits our work has produced and supports with their informed decision making.
So we can't have an AI panel without focusing on Gen AI technology. So with the increase of Gen AI technologies that are out there in the market, right? How is this, these factors influencing your decision making, and how is it also then changing in the roadmap that you have with regards to your projects?
So definitely Gen AI is an active topic in our organization, just like any other organization that you all have. But there are several factors that guide in our decision making. First is alignment to our business objectives. Whenever we evaluate new technology, we make sure that we ask the question whether this technology allows us to reach our business goals, strategic goals more effectively, or open new avenues for innovation, right? And then second, security and compliance are non-negotiable for us, because as we bring new technology, we make sure that we run rigorous evaluations on the technology, whether they comply with our data governance, security, legal, privacy, ethical, and security standards, because that's crucial for us when we deal with financial data sets in a regulatory function standpoint. Another factor is integration. When we bring new technology, it needs to integrate with our existing technology stacks and architecture. So we run several R&D experiments to prove whether the technology fit for purpose or business use case, and assess its functionality and performance before we make any firm commitment. So one example, we just had our annual hackathon event last week, where we had Dataiku V13 LLM mesh that was just talked about, where 500 of our hackathon users used as part of their hackathon ideas. So those are some avenues that we introduce these new technologies early on to test our experimentation process and conduct pilot projects eventually once we see that there is demonstrable value there in that technology. So we strive to stay at the forefront of technology, but also making sure that the technology adds clear value and measurable impact to our business goals, aligning with our long-term vision.
Geetha, thank you for sharing what you're doing at FINRA. I'd like to next... I'd like to invite Charlotte from Alnylam. Thanks for joining. So similar to Geetha, let's start off by introducing Alnylam, talking a little bit about your role and the composition of your team using Dataiku.
Sounds great. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Charlotte. So by training, I'm a data scientist, and I've been working at the intersection of data science and pharma life science for the past decade. Currently, I lead our commercial analytics team at Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, and for those that don't know, Alnylam is a biotech company at the forefront of RNA interference, or RNAi therapeutics, which is a transformative platform that for treating diseases by targeting root causes at the genetic level. So I've been with the company for about 4 years now, and I've been always very data-driven, and that's where my team comes into the place. We assess if AI ML is the solution for a key business question, and we integrate that into our part of our functions. So I think you also asked about how, in terms of some of our key questions that we've been answering with Dataiku, I am the person responsible for bringing Dataiku to my company. We've been using it for many use cases at Alnylam, from predictive to just answering general analytics. But before that, a while back when I was at management consulting, the biggest point for me that was really attractive was that it really allowed a group of data science with different skills at different levels of capabilities to be able to collaborate really well. And that has driven efficiency and effectiveness at my current place as well. So we definitely continue to see, as my company continue to scale, we're actually launching next year to see that Dataiku will continue to play a critical role in helping with our growth.
And I think that's a good segue into some of the use cases that you're working on. So how are you prioritizing some of those use cases? And similar to Geetha with FINRA, right? How has that changed or evolved over time?
Yeah, so the principles stay roughly the same, but the use cases themselves have evolved over time. So we have always looked at basically impact for the company, and also the feasibility if the technology is there, if the data is there, if the platform is mature enough for us to produce something meaningful. And the 3 top use cases, I would say one of them I will go into a little bit in depth here, is patient acceleration, which is a predictive analytics platform that we actually created proprietarily, and we'll continue to have big dreams for it. And second use cases is a lot of optimization, so ROI type of work, which is actually going to become even more critical as we scale. And the third one is, can we generate a lot of insights, make them more self-serving, and make them more modularized? And the one that I want to share a little bit more today is the first use case. So our current products on the market are more focused on rare disease. And if you're wondering, like, why do I care? Because in fact, the rare disease affects in total 10% of the US population. So it is rare, any individual of them, but the totality of them can be highly relevant for a lot of us. And what we see is a lot of the patients that we help with, they are all faced with this very challenging journey where it takes a very long time for them to be diagnosed or to be correctly diagnosed. A lot of them are having multiple misdiagnoses, and we have to actually help them so that it's not too late when they're eventually correctly diagnosed. And utilizing Dataiku, we're able to build this machine learning algorithm where we're really driving, accelerating time to not just the diagnosis, but also time to treatment. There are a lot of work where we have to produce monthly and a lot of data coming in that we have to consolidate. And there is also a machine learning operations piece, which took a lot of time that we actually could streamline and make it more efficient with Dataiku. So that's one of the top use cases that we have been developing in Dataiku actively.
So to support all these various different use cases in rare disease, how are you enabling all of the different users within the organization, right? And also maybe some of the challenges that you're facing with that massive enablement.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in our line of work, it is very important to help keep educating actually a lot of our day-to-day collaborators, if they're not the ones that are actually working on this, how this really drive some of the bigger picture questions. So what we do internally is we continue to share the role of different platforms and different type of data and how that really can transform where we are now and turn that challenge into something that is understandable. So if you look at what I'm sharing on the screen now, this is one of the slides actually we use internally to help everyone understand a little bit of how the platform that we built, we call it Haystack, to really able to reduce the amount of operational work that is required from our field team and how we're leveraging different types of data sets, applying AML on it, and then integrating the insights from maybe market research, maybe field tools, and are all centralizing them with this Dataiku platform. So it is a lot of, I agree with what Gisa was saying, right? We do it together. So we really want everyone to understand that this is not just magic. It's actually something very, very tangible, and how with GenAI today, we'll even be able to reimagine it even more.
So you mentioned market research, the field teams, right? You have a lot of internal stakeholders as well. So how are you managing their expectations, but also demonstrating that value of your work?
That's a great question. So for us, it's a lot about setting the right expectations. I think with Connor, right? Everyone wished that the data are just integrated seamlessly without any problem, but in reality, it is very messy. And in a field where we all work in, data is a great asset, but it's extremely important to highlight what type of questions we can answer and what type of questions we cannot. If they're still very relevant and important, yet we're not there yet, what's the timeline that we're looking at, and who might be able to help us? And maybe Dataiku is one of them, right? So sharing the roadmap and the expectations in terms of when we can deliver what, and just constantly align with our key business holders on these questions has been really helping us to shape up how we can deliver values to them. And we are in a very highly regulated industry, so always we're all best of friends. We're always best of friends with legal compliance in terms of how we're utilizing and proposing solutions to different type of questions to make sure that we can actually turn them into reality.
So last question before we open up to Q&A. How has GenAI technologies impacted that roadmap?
Yeah, so very exciting. The Haystack platform that I was just talking about, we actually want to integrate GenAI into it. But recently in my company, we just agreed that GenAI is something that we want to do at the enterprise level. So it is, again, it's that do it together, right? We have enterprise level strategy, but within commercial, where I lead a little bit more, we have also conducted workshops so that all of different across the entire value chain, everyone is brainstorming on what they want to do because we want to get the end user to be very excited. AI is more of an enabler. If people are there with you, then they're more likely actually to pull it through. Very recently, we are seeing some of content being generated by GenAI, and we have actually a list of 84 use cases that we have discussed and brainstormed. So a lot of them are not prioritized, but I do see that with the same principle of let's do it together, let's keep educating and help everyone understand how GenAI is not just a hype, but something that we can actually utilize for maybe knowledge management is something that we'll continue to do in order to pull that through.
Charlotte, Geetha, I've asked a lot of questions today, so let's open it up to the audience. Raise your hand. We do have some mics centered in the room, and we can hand those to you if you have a question. Any questions?
You want to stand here?
Geetha, this is a question for you. You mentioned about a lot of users coming and using the platform. And love the architecture. Like, how do you manage such a volume in terms of capacity and performance?
Yeah, I think a lot of effort went in building that scalable architecture. We also have horizontally scaled Dataiku platform to serve multiple business units across the organization. But then this is more about taking the elasticity of the cloud that is offered. So we are able to, scale out based on what we have AWS. So the Dataiku platform runs on our AWS cloud on Kubernetes. So just pushing the boundaries of the AWS cloud and Kubernetes and what Dataiku can scale. And then constantly working with the Dataiku team, the customer team, and the support and the research team to look at possible opportunities for us to improve on the performance and the cost savings for the architecture.
Any other questions?
So, the first you mentioned that you know patients with rare diseases. So, how can you measure that actually help?
That's an excellent question. So there are a couple of ways to do that, and one of the main KPIs that we use is time. So we use our real-world evidence data, and we try to measure how long it takes for the patients to first get diagnosed to all the way to treatment, any treatment. And we are actually seeing that those patients that we have been able to help educate a little bit earlier in terms of their HCPs are actually getting onto the treatment faster. So time is something that we measure and to see how much of a difference we can make utilizing AI/ML.
Any additional questions? Right here in the front.
My question is for you, Charlotte. You mentioned working with compliance and legal, so can you share some examples for any challenges you found working with these groups?
There's never challenges with ever, ever.
It's an excellent question. We have weekly meeting with our legal compliance team, and the challenge is less from, I think, the team itself, but more from we want to be able to be innovative, but at the same time, we really want to respect those that we're serving for. Maybe only a portion of them are opting in, or maybe there's a different way that we can do it in a compliant way. So for us, I think it's about iterative, proposing an idea without being afraid of being shut down, and then actually come back, because we do get into the rhythm of, nah, I don't think that's ever gonna work. But then we actually come back and say, hey, how about in a different way? We actually are able to utilize maybe a third-party data, and if you integrate in this way, some of the patients already opted in. They want the service. So it's an iterative process that actually can help us get there. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, thank you.
I can take a stab at that too, because for a regulatory organization like us, this is also important. So what has worked with us is a mutual understanding and awareness on new technologies, especially when we deal with things like generative AI that has an element of VUCA into it, the volatility and uncertainty and complexity there. So a mutual understanding on each other's concerns from both the sides, and then having an awareness about the technologies, use cases, and the functionality, and taking small steps. Maybe start with an experimentation layer before we talk about production rollout, but an experimentation and an R&D, a pilot, and then taking it to the next level could be an ongoing discussion, and that can help both the parties sort of come to the table and understand.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. We have time for one more question, right here in front.
Thank you. Geeta, you talked about when you first started using Dataiku that you were on kind of like a R&D path. And so how did your journey change from R&D to then everybody on board? What are the factors that contributed to that change?
Yeah, so I think our year one has been mostly on experimentation and R&D projects, figuring out what kind of projects is going to work within the platform and how do we able to demonstrate business value and business benefits out of those projects. So it's more of an experimentation for the first year. But then once we got through that, we were able to find elements of business use cases that would work better in the platform if we had approached it. So initially, we approached a lot of AI models, and eventually we realized, data being the problem always, that there is a lot of data enrichment and data analysis and data analytics work that can happen in the platform before we get to AI. So we sort of nailed on that strategy throughout that experimentation process, and hence we have a lot of use cases along the lines of data analytics and then AI. But then it is the articulation of that business value and benefits that really drove that process.
Geeta, Charlotte, I wanted to thank you for sharing some of your best practices, your lessons learned, and sharing your AI journey accelerated by Dataiku.
Thank you.